Every life there are four seasons: summer, winter, spring, and fall. And you may think walking the bright side of the street will bring you happiness and all. So I will break this to you gently. One season's pleasure, one is pain. The very sky that brings you sunshine today, tomorrow might just bring you rain. Seasons are gonna change. Seasons are gonna change. Seasons are gonna change. Sometimes people start believing the way things are is how they'll stay. But if you only hold on a little longer, skies just might not seem so gray. And other people spend time longing to find a love and find it soon. If they only knew what tomorrow might bring, there would be less sadness, doom and gloom. Seasons are gonna change. Seasons are gonna change. Seasons are gonna change. If you think your dog will never die, if you think that love has passed you by, if you think your little girl won't lie to you, just wait and see what seasons bring. Winter will change into the spring, but the winter always comes again. Seasons are gonna change. Seasons are gonna change. A life's revolving game. Nothing stays the same. Everything is gonna change. Seasons are gonna change. Seasons are gonna change.
Welcome to The Arthropologist. You were just listening to Seasons Are Gonna Change by Hunter Gibson. Hunter, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
Oh, man, that was fantastic. I mean, I really, really loved that song. And it's so apropos to what's going on right now.
It really is. I wrote it with lyricist Robin White 2 years ago, but this week I just started thinking about it again, and I thought, it's so appropriate now. I'd like to re-record it and add some more vocals and instruments and make a YouTube video. So I just put that out.
Okay, and we have been talking earlier about backtracking, and apparently that's a lot of what you just did on this song. So explain to everyone what backtracking is, because I didn't know until you started telling me on the phone.
Okay. Well, backing tracks, as it's sometimes referred to, is a term that that people, if you want a song, you can buy or create a backing track. So it's kind of a new thing. It's not something that we had available in the 80s when I first started out. So I used to have to create all all the sounds of my one-man band act, which I started in the about 3 years into performing to try to pick things up because I knew a lot of people that were listening wanted more danceable stuff. So then I started learning how to program drums and sequence instruments, and so I used to spend as much as 8 hours working on a 3-minute song. It was a really long process. And in the last few years, because of the internet, it's made it a lot easier. They actually have websites you can go to, and you can purchase the backing tracks and customize them. Um, take out instruments, take out vocals, mix it. And so there's still work involved with putting the track together, but it's not from scratch. So that's what I do a lot of now on the popular songs, where I can find the tracks and then I mix them together, and get the volumes evened out. A lot of people don't realize how much work goes into putting together a show for a one-man band setup like I have, because they think that I just push a button on stage and make the songs appear. But there's actually a lot of prep work that goes into getting them matched up and edited, and all that. But in the early days, I had to do everything from scratch, and which brings me to the song that we just heard, "Seasons Are Gonna Change." I did all the instruments for that as well, except the slide guitar. I had Chris Gill, a good friend of mine, played the slide guitar on that 2 years ago, and I just took his track from 2 years ago and adjusted it and changed the key to fit the newly recorded version. But then I programmed the drums and the bass and played the organ and piano, and did like a synthesized guitar and then recorded all the vocals. So that's how I used to do all my live show songs. But luckily, it's not as time consuming as it used to be.
The instruments that you're talking about, when you're doing backtracking and the digital ones you can get online, are any of these purely digital, or are they performances that someone else has done that's just been digitized? If you understand what I'm asking.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the song. There's a certain website that I use now. I think it's called Karaoke Version, and they have customizable backing tracks. You pay $3, and then you get all the instruments individually. Now, if you have to have some kind of computer recording software in order to take the tracks and individualize them and mix them. So just anybody would be able to get the track, but they wouldn't really be able to customize them without some other kind of software. But a lot of those have actual instruments, and you can preview the tracks. I try to stay away from the ones that sound like they're obviously just digital instruments. But some drum programs can actually sound very realistic, and I've always tried to make my drum parts sound like they were actually played by a drummer.
Well, let me ask you this. Now I'm just curious, how many instruments do you play?
Well, keyboard is my main instrument. I play harmonica as well. I play a little guitar. I used to play a little more guitar than I do now. And I play a little bass and a little bit of drums, so I play a little bit of a lot of instruments, but mainly just the keyboards.
And so how many hours, I know for some of the performances I've been to with you, you're up there for 2 or 3 hours. So how many hours of prep work would it take to put together a playlist that you're going to go through in that 3-hour period of time?
Wow. That's hard to say. Like I said, it used to take me like 8 hours to program a song. And now with the being able to get the tracks. I can usually get one downloaded and put together in a couple of hours. So if I'm going to play 30 songs in a 3 hour period, then that would basically be, 60 hours of work. But of course I don't do that for every show. Once I get the songs learned and programmed, then they're there.
So that's why when guys like me, I'm out on the floor dancing with my wife, and all of a sudden, I want to do a different kind of dance. We might be doing a lot of what you do, a lot of popular stuff kind of goes to an East Coast swing. Every once in a while, like the girl from Ipanema or something like that is to a Roomba beat. And so after a while, I get tired of doing the East Coast. And so I'll say, well, let me go see if I can do a request. Well, so guys like me are kind of a pain then, aren't we? Because it's not like you've just got it on a record album and you can just move the needle and come up with this other song.
Well, at least for you, if you requested a specific song, that would be easy, because I do know the song, so I could just go to my iPad and call up the music that I've programmed or downloaded. But a lot of times people will say, play a rumba or play a cha-cha, and I'm bad about not knowing what kind of dances go with certain kind of songs. So that's always kind of a problem with dancers, is our languages are different.
Yeah, I know it. For a dancer, especially, I mean, I don't pretend like I'm this professional dancer. We do dance. We've been dancing about 10 years, and we do actually teach, but we teach on a beginner's level. And so all I know is, like the rumba is slow, quick, quick, slow. Well, when you walk up to a musician and say, play a beat that goes quick, quick, slow, they look at you kind of funny because it doesn't translate in their head.
No, in fact, I've seen you on the dance floor. You guys do a great job. But my wife and I took a dance class several years ago, and it was really hard for me to count because the counting in dancing is very different from the counting in music. A lot of times it's like maybe on 3 beats, or like you said, quick, quick, slow, and it was really hard for me to do the counting because it's very different than musicians counting.
Now tell me, you've been doing this for a long time, and again, wanting to sort of help a young person that's starting out and wanting to emulate you, because you've made your living for almost 4 decades exclusively as a musician. And I know that even before the digital age, albums, CDs, that was not where you made your money. I can remember even when the digital age started, I believe it was the Grateful Dead, they started giving their albums away, much to the chagrin of their record producer, because they said, well, we don't make any money off that anyway. It's the performances. So talk a little bit about, what you have to do to get your gigs, and what you're looking at now with the possibility of an ongoing off again, on again quarantine situation.
Well, it's very different now than it was. I remember when I first started out, I basically just picked up the Yellow Pages and started looking through places, and if I saw live music, then I would just call them. And the first place I ever played in Jackson in 1982 was a place called the Seafood Market Restaurant. They had an ad in the Yellow Pages that said live piano player. So I called to see if they would give me a chance, and they said, we took that ad out, but we've yet to actually start having a live piano player. So we liked the idea. So I was the first one, and basically I just showed up and played a night for free, and they liked it, and I played there for like 3 or 4 months regularly. But it's certainly not like that today. It's harder for several reasons. But one is there's kind of a group of musicians that play a lot of the same places, and so some of the restaurants or bars are booked up with their regular entertainers and don't have a whole lot of room for new people to come in. But it does happen. Um, there are several clubs that like to have fresh faces, so they're always willing to let somebody come in and give it a shot. But yeah, like I said, for me, it was just getting on the phone and sending out tapes to people. Sometimes that would cassette tapes. Yeah, that was a long time ago. But some people just want to hear you play live. So I played a lot of shows for free just to kind of audition. Um, and I think that's pretty much the best way to do it now. Is if you're willing to show up at a place and play a show for free and see what they think. But
Well, that brings up something very interesting because in my world, so many people want free art, especially auctions and charity events. And, they'll say, oh, this will give you so much exposure. And we've got it's almost like a meme in the painting world that goes around, exposure bucks. And, you can't buy anything with those, with exposure bucks. And, it's been my experience that on a lot of these auctions, a lot of charity events, you just don't get any traction off of it. And I mean, some people do, but lots and lots of artists don't. And so I was really curious, as far as in your music world, how many charitable events are you asked to perform at, and how often are you asked to do this for free?
well, it happened a lot more early on, I think, and I don't know this. I'm just guessing, but I'm thinking that maybe because if people know that I'm a professional musician, they might be thinking, well, we can't ask him to do this for free because this is how he makes his living. So I don't get as many, um, as many people asking to do those type of events. But we do have a certain number that we have been doing for several years. And so we just kind of pick and choose um, certain events and fundraisers that we do for free. Um, Boys and Girls Club, Blues by Starlight has been one of them. Taste of Mississippi has been one. We've done that one for, gosh, probably 20 years. We always do that one for free. And it just, a lot of times it depends on the day of the week. Certain events like Taste of Mississippi is generally on a Monday night. So that's fairly easy night for us to play a freebie. But if it were on a Saturday night, that there's probably no way I could agree to that because we do so many wedding receptions on weekends.
Is solo work or band work the majority of your work?
Well, over the last 5 or 6 years, the private gigs have increased for the band and slowed down for the solo act. So I don't know exactly what the reason for that was. Maybe it's people are just wanting just a bigger party for their wedding receptions. So the band is getting a lot more work in the wedding receptions and private parties. But in the club work, it's always been a lot more of the solo, duo, maybe trio work because there are very few places that can afford to pay the whole band to play. There's really only one public place that we play in town, Shuckers, and other than that, it's all private events. That's something that you learn. You've got to know your audience, and I've always tried to keep my music very much a variety of music, so that if we play an event, they're not just hearing all blues or all rock or all pop. So we
Well,
try to do
I want to say from
different types.
a listener's standpoint, at least from my standpoint as a dancer, I have appreciated that. And as a matter of fact, other dance instructors that I've talked to, they really like your band because you do play that variety. We'll go places a lot of times where for 2 solid hours, all they play are foxtrot beats. And, we love the foxtrot. It's fine. And of course, for people who don't know, that's really more of a 40s type big band era type music. It's got a particular beat and it's a little bit unique. And so, for a lot of dances, you can't do an East Coast swing to a foxtrot beat or vice versa. It's not going to happen. So, you go and you want to dance, and there's only one kind of dance you can do. Whereas with your band and with your solo act, we've gone in and you play such a broad range. It's been really nice because you don't get bored listening. It's got a lot of variety to it.
Well, that's good to hear, because that's always been what I've strived to do with any configuration is to really get a variety. I don't really like to go hear somebody play and every song kind of sounds the same. And that's another advantage to have the backing tracks, is that you can change things up. You can play a song with just piano, and then the next song you can bring in the other programmed instruments and go from Elton John to Usher,
Yeah, and I will tell
quickly.
you something else. Just one of my pet peeves is you do not play overly loud. I will tell you, my wife and I, and lots of those of us who dance and all, we actually carry earplugs with us all the time, because you get in even to a large room and you can't even talk to the person you're right in front of because the music is so loud. And one of the things that we have appreciated so much with your band is that, if you're right on top of the speakers, then it's pretty loud, but you can be in the same room and be in the back and actually talk to somebody without being blown away with the sound.
Yeah, that's another thing that I find very important. I try to listen to what people say, and keep that in mind, especially at weddings. I know that if I were at a wedding or a party, maybe I'll listen to the band, maybe I'll dance, but I'm not there. It's not a concert. I'm not there just to hear the loud music. I want to be able to visit. These people, if it's a wedding or a class reunion, these people are catching up. And so I always try to strike a balance between it being loud enough to where people can really feel the music and want to dance to it, but not overpowering so that they have to scream at each other. And I always tell clients, if it's too loud, let me know. I don't hesitate. I'm not one of those musicians that are like, I'm not going to turn down.
Well, let me ask you this. You started out and you were a single man. A few years into your career, you get married and you start having children. I think you've got, 2.
Too, yeah.
How did that change? How did that change your dynamic? For one thing, most of your gigs are at night, I'm assuming. So how does that play on family life? How does all that work, being a professional, full-time musician and having a successful family life?
Actually, it worked out really well. We have 2 daughters, and we never had to pay for daycare, because since I worked at night, I basically took care of the girls during the day while my wife worked. And then she came home from work, and a lot of times it was like tag team. She'd walk in and I'm walking out. Or I'd call her and say, hey, can you get home a little bit early? I got to go to a gig. But it usually worked out well. And the only bad thing is that we just didn't see a whole lot of each other because our
So how many
schedules were
nights
so
a
different.
week do you work now? And then maybe back then, how many nights a week were you working?
I was probably back then playing like 5 nights a week. Now it's more like four. It hadn't changed a whole lot, but generally every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'm playing. Um, so I'd say about half the week. Half the week I'm home, half the week I'm not. Um,
And
and
when you're setting up,
that
even when
well.
you're doing a local event, how many hours does it take to set up the equipment? And I'm sure it varies depending on whether you're doing it solo or whether you're doing it with the whole band. Isn't it something several hours before and several hours after?
Yeah, well, with the band, it really is. It's basically a minimum of 2 hours set up for the band's equipment and about an hour and a half takedown. With the solo act, it's more like, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour to set up and take down. But I'm doing that all myself. So I used to have a roadie for my solo act, and then I thought, this is ridiculous. I can pick this stuff up by myself. And so I kind of use it as my personal workout. Luckily, we had several things happen, but it was early on. This was like in the late 70s when I was playing in a band. And we showed up at a club in Meridian one time, and we were contracted to play from 8 till 12, and we only knew 4 hours of material. Well, counting breaks, more like a little over 3 hours. And we got to the club, and they had extended it an hour. So it was 8 to 1. And we didn't know what to do. We thought, well, maybe we could play the first set over again, or maybe we could just take longer breaks. So we decided to take longer breaks, and this really upset the manager, and she refused to pay us for the whole weekend. But it's one of those things, where, okay, you change the times on us. We have a contract that says we play for 4 hours, and you want us to play for 5. So we kind of felt like we didn't do anything wrong. Anyway, it ended up going to court, and our drummer's mom was a lawyer at the time, and she got us our $600. 2 nights for $600.
Wow. But among how many people? 3, 4? Or?
Oh, I think we had 4 in the band. And of course, we
Oh,
had to rent, so we rarely made any money back then. Um, and there was another time when the same band was playing in Waynesboro, Waynesboro, and our manager decided we were playing in an airplane hangar for some high school party or something, and our manager decided to drive down the runway of the airport because he thought that would be fun, and he got arrested, and so we ended up having to bail him out of jail in the middle of the night. That was not a very good trip, but luckily you know that was just one of those things where if you've got to know what you're doing. If you've got to know, you've got to take the gigs that, when you're just starting out, you'll take anything. So I guess that's just kind of one of the disadvantages of starting out, is that you do really need to take whatever you can. But sometimes it'll be with a shady bar owner, or and not with a contract. And there's so many stories about bands or musicians that don't get paid what they're supposed to, and they really don't have any way to any help in that department. But
Yeah, well,
But I always do contracts.
lawyers' fees would eat up whatever you would get from the contract anyway.
Exactly. And I've just been lucky enough to work with honest people over the years. One of the weirdest things that happened with the current band was about 15 years ago. We booked a wedding reception in Tupelo, and the father of the bride, I don't know if he was a lawyer or if he just had been burned before, but when he sent the contract back that I sent out, he attached something to say if we didn't show up for whatever reason, we had to pay him $10,000. And this was probably a $1,500 gig. And that's the weirdest request I've ever had. And all I could tell him was, look, I can give you references. We've been doing this for a long time, but I can't guarantee you that we'll show up because there's too many things that could go wrong. I can tell you that we've never missed a gig before, and that's the best I can do. And he finally took that clause off. And the weird thing is that they ended up canceling the whole wedding anyway after all that.
I love that $10,000 clause. That's, as if you could have even come up with that.
And I know, and it even got better after they canceled. I had to keep their deposit because they canceled so quickly to the time that I didn't have time to book another gig. And that's part of my contract is if we reserve the date and you cancel and I can't replace the date with something else, then I keep the deposit. Well, I went on vacation and it happened to be that Saturday, and apparently the mom noticed that and sent me an email and said, well, I think you should just give us back our money since you went on vacation. Well, this family just is better and better. I did not give the money back because I still lost out on work.
Well, Hunter, this has been a delight. Can you tell us how people can get a hold of you? What's your website?
It's very easy, huntergibson.com. And then the band is hunterandthegators.com. So you can reach.
And what about Facebook? You on Facebook?
Yes. I have a personal Facebook page, which is just Hunter Gibson. And I also have a group called Fans of Hunter Gibson that you can ask to join.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Hunter. This has been fantastic.
Well, thank you for having me, Bill. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. I'm Bill Wilson, and I'm the Arthropologist. If you've enjoyed this episode of The Arthropologist, please hit the like button. And if you'd like to see more episodes like this, think about subscribing. I'm Bill Wilson, and I'm the Arthropologist.